Welcome to Out with Dan, the podcast that spotlights and examines the voices of LGBTQ+ authors, characters, and our allies. Together, we lift our voices and we tell our stories. I'm Dan White. Join me as I chat with this week's author. It does indeed. Hello and welcome back to Out with Dan. Today I'm excited to talk to Lauren Myracle about Plays Well with Others. Welcome, Lauren.
Well, hey, Dan. All right, the fact that you just showed the book like that makes me think that this is going to be an audio and visual recording.
It is both. I'm sorry, I probably forgot.
I
probably forgot to tell your publicist. Whoopsie.
No, I'm sure you did, and I just
I've worked with Sarah so often, I forget to tell her again because I assume she remembers.
You know what? I'm sure she did. It's my brain.
Love Sarah.
But and it's not like I would have done much better. So sorry, y'all. This is what it looks like.
You look magnificent. So, you know what? So let's start off with a little bit. I was asking you just before we recorded. So I've learned that you've had banned books or books that have been banned. Can you share with the audience what that's about? Because I will say that the only other author I've talked to that had a banned book was Thrilled to Death. Her book was banned.
Who was it?
Tell us about Maggie Takuda Hall.
Okay, yep, I know her. Well, all right. So another thing that Dan and I learned before he hit the start button is that he and I are both Southern, and so we quickly became best friends. And he mentioned this whole thing about, I heard Love You Bunches got banned. That actually, I don't actually know that Love You Bunches is, so I write for kids, and then the book we might eventually talk about is the one for grownups. But this was a series of books I wrote about 4 girls in 5th grade, and one of the girls is named Mila, and she has 2 moms. And so at the time, this was maybe, over a decade ago, Scholastic Book Fair said, hey, we love this series. We think it would be a perfect fit for the book fairs. This was before COVID, and this is when you could still make, Scholastic Book Fairs could kind of make or break you because it was such exposure, such amazing exposure. And they said, there's just one small little problem. 2 moms, not going to fly. How about this? How about it's a friendly aunt? And I'm like, oof. No, I can't change it. No, because, you're like money, integrity, and maybe I'm just naive or maybe it's Southern, but it's like, I wrote it on purpose so that kids like Mila would say, oh, I see myself. Oh, so that was a story with Love You Bunches. But yeah, I've been the #1 most banned author in the country for more than 1 year. I know, crazy, huh? So ALA, which is the American Library Association, they take in all this data, and it's data that public libraries and school libraries, so not private schools usually, but send in. And the first thing you got to remember is that the data that gets sent in, it, with all data, it represents only a teeny little bit of what's really going on. Because with book banning, what happens a lot of time is if a title becomes problematic, or say you're at a school and you're already stressed out and you're the media center director and this parent comes in there, the librarian just starts hiding the book. Not all, or anyway. So the first book of mine that showed up on this. So I got this email out of the blue. I was still a young baby author, just thrilled to be writing for a living, and still not quite aware that the fact that I wrote a book meant that people who weren't my mother or my sister would be reading them. and so I had no idea of my audience was truly the teenagers I was writing for, meaning I was not strategic about genre and picking a marketable, none of that business stuff even was part of my world. I just wanted to tell good stories about real kids. So this book, TTYL, which stands for Talk to You Later, is about 3 teenagers, and it's all told back in the day, it was instant messaging, but so basically texting. And it did really well, and it bought me a house. It was awesome. Like that.
Yes.
So I was thrilled because it was my first breakout book. And so I was, delighted. Also, the reason it was a breakout book is because my advances were always tiny, like teeny,
Yes.
teeny, tiny. So, but if you have a tiny advance, that means you get royalties. So anyway, I just got on my email, blah, blah, blah. And there's this innocent looking email, and it said, we just wanted to alert you that your book, TTYL, is the third most banned book in the US for the year of, I don't know, I think it was 2003 or something like that. I can't remember. I could be making that up. And unlike Maggie, my stomach cramped up, and I just felt that feeling of, oh shit, what have I done? And I don't know. I mean, it's certainly a Southern thing. I don't know if you feel it, or if it's just, I'm so easy to default to kind of dread and shame. And, oh, I didn't mean to, part of it is I didn't mean to mess up. I didn't mean to hurt anybody's feelings. I didn't mean to get in trouble. And so, and then, so I called or I emailed my editor, and she was like, woohoo! So yeah,
yes.
She knew she knew that. And then and my publicist was even more thrilled. And then, my dad was like, any attention is good attention. And it did help me. So then that kind of let me breathe again, because I just didn't want to upset. But it took me a while to kind of come around to realizing, okay, I told this story that I thought mattered.
Yes.
It's not the kids who are banning it.
No.
It's the grown-ups who are banning it. And why they were banning it, I mean, there's only one possible. Well, actually, I got a lot of letters back then too. Letters that said things like, or I'd see on boards, Satan is among us, and her name is Lauren Myracle. Come on.
Lauren, I mean, that's high praise, to be compared to Satan. I mean, that's right up there at the top of the list. I love it.
Well, yeah.
And if we could wield that kind of power, if they really thought you were Satan, it would scare the shit out of them, and they wouldn't come for you.
I should have taken advantage of that. Dan, where were you? Where were you? Oh my
God. Sorry. I guess I was channeling that because I wore red today.
You can look at that red shirt.
Oh my God.
So at any rate, at that point, I decided to just own it and be like, yeah, okay. So, but I always think, I mean, the other thing is, I understand these parents who are scared. It's these parents, and the world is, God, as you know, we're going, I mean, nutso. Yes. And so I get it that a parent would think, I want to keep my kids safe. And I can't change the TV. I can't change movies. I can't change I can at least, I can take this book out of their hands. And to me, that is wrong-minded, because a book is an intimate, slow, personal experience that a reader can have, and you can put it down when you need to. Yes. And you're not being manipulated with a soundtrack or with pretty actors.
That's right.
And you don't have to agree with the book.
No.
And what I've known from myself as a reader and watching my other, children be readers, if a kid's not ready for a book, either they just won't get it, or they'll put it down.
Sure.
So for me,
if it doesn't speak to them, there have been books even at my age that I'll start and I'm like, you know what, this isn't for me right now. Yeah. And maybe I'll come back to it a year or two later, or maybe I'll never return to it. That is the beauty of books. Some of them speak to you. And then some books I read are so profound that I remember nearly every word, because it's one of those things that it just touches you. So now I'm curious, because there was a reason for this. Occasionally I might have a train of thought here. So now I want to talk about plays well with others in relation to banning. Was this sort of a thumbing the nose at banning? Because there is a lot of that shows up in this book. So give the audience an overview before I talk it to death of what Plays Well with Others is about.
Well, I love hearing you talk about it, and I love hearing your accent.
Thank you.
I have to add in real quick that my daddy is from Tennessee, and his accent was so strong. And then that darling man made a point of losing it. So he was a son of cotton farmers, and he felt very out of place, and he went to college, and he said he just watched and he stayed quiet and he watched what fork he used, what spoon, and then he deliberately, and now he still sounds Southern, but it's very Lauren. He's very calm. Anyway, so
He's very refined. Oh yeah, all of my friends that I've met in Los Angeles, they automatically know I'm from North Carolina, and if they're from North Carolina as well, they don't sound like me at all because they've wanted to change and alter theirs, and I appreciate that. That was their decision. I've used mine to my advantage for
absolutely,
so long. It's like
absolutely.
people always think I'm nicer than I am, and
No, I don't believe it. Well, I think you're nice, but I also think that you're gritty. That's what I think. You'll get stuff done.
I do, and I'm very keen on other people because I am curious at what others are like,
Me
really
too.
and truly like. I
Yeah.
think that's one of the reasons we read. I
Oh,
want to know what other characters are thinking
100%. Well, and
because
actually, this is probably one of those things that could weirdly be divisive, and I don't mean it to. And so, Dan, maybe this is one of your magic powers is that you lure people into saying things. But I realize that I'm fingering my necklace, and it's a cross, which is very Southern.
and I have an ankh.
Very cool. And I think, and so in my funny world of being an author, I think that many people in that world, especially right now, think that Christianity means bigotry, prejudice, closed doors. And in terms of wanting to know people and wanting to share and be open, part of my own weird defiance. This is, you know what? That's your question. So in Plays Well with Others, no, I wasn't thumbing my nose. I might have been, but let me finish this thought first.
Come on.
But with wearing a cross, that is me gently thumbing my nose at saying, hey, y'all, guess what? This weird liberal with no filter who 100% will invite every one of you into my home and not judge one of you. This to me is what,
100%, Lauren. We really are on twins on that.
Okay.
I have a lot of friends who I understand where they've come from. They've been
Yep.
burned by organized religion. I hid in the church growing up. Church provided me a sanctuary to hide. I was able to sing and act and perform in church, something I would never have been able to do in school, but I could do it in church because that was approved.
Why couldn't you do it in school?
Well, I grew up in the country. We didn't have
theater.
Well, in the first grade, I was the star of the elementary school play, but I think after the third grade, there was no more theater at all.
No arts,
I didn't grow up as a theater nerd. I sort of wish I had, but it just didn't exist where it didn't exist. But I found that outlet in church. So for me, while I differ greatly from a lot of what is espoused in today's world, I have a respect for it because a lot of people get good things from church and spirituality. So, I just don't toe the line, and my mouth is a little colorful. So and I have a thought, I actually, God gave me a brain, so I don't need a minister to tell me how to feel. I can think on my own. So
100%. Yeah. And for me, it's about church. It's about singing and community. And, the church I'm going to right now, the pastor is a transgender, wonderful human, Pastor Joe. So, there's all kinds of churches out there. Anyway.
Absolutely.
So you're asking, was I trying to thumb my nose at all those? I'm interested to know why who do you think?
So
you asked me to explain the book. Sorry.
Yes.
Very Southern and very chatty. All right. So y'all, the audience people, the book Plays Well with Others is my first adult book, which makes it sound like porn, but it's not porn. It's just that it's written for an adult audience instead of an audience of kids. And it's the story of Jacqueline, though she goes by Jake Nolan, who's 29, and she's had a really bad year. She said some really dumb stuff online, what she thought of as personal and private, to her best friend. It was via an email and then a Facebook post. And then the friend turned around and put it all online, and it ruined Jake. She the whole cancel thing happened. She lost her job. She lost her husband. She lost her best friend. And in the midst of all this, she was also reeling from losing a child very, very late in her pregnancy. So after a year, so the book picks up just about a year after she's been moping for a year, and now she's like, comes back, rises from the ashes, and thinks, okay, I've been a good girl all my life, and that sure didn't get me anywhere. So I mean, and clearly she's got some growing to do, but at that point in time, so I'm going to try revenge. I'm going to try being bad. And so she makes a point to go out and pay back her friend Shelby, the one who betrayed her. So that's what the book's about. But it's also at the same time, so there's the story of all these grown-ups who are involved in their dramas, and there's a lot of drama, and the drama feels very real to them, because any drama feels very real to the people who are going through it. But at the same time, it's very much a domestic neighborhood drama. At the same time, there are these children who live on the same street, and their dramas are equally important to them. But the grown-ups forget, as grown-ups always do, that children are real human beings. Yes. And so where they're off doing their, important grown-up petty revenge, things are going on with these kids that are slipping by the radar, and that's the real danger, I think. And so I think it turns out to be a book that really tries to paint a picture of that phrase, hurt people, and kind of a reminder that we grown-ups, it's our job to remember that these little people, we don't want to let them grow up to be hurt people,
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. Well, and so my correlation with them was because of the cancel culture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So me personally, I am so not fond of cancel culture. I don't care who it is, because the internet was all ablaze for the last couple of weeks about this big time CEO who's shown his arms around one of his coworkers. So here's my big take on that. It's none of my business, and I don't care what he does. That's between him and his coworker and their respective families, but it has nothing to do with me. I don't even know the man's name. I don't know what he's the CEO of, and I don't ever want to know, because I don't care. But there are people that I keep thinking to myself, you need to get a life, and it needs to be your own, and stop trying to meddle in everyone else's. So I had such a fun time, though, reading the revenge parts. And then I will say that I believe that every young adult who's read your books, as they're aging up, they're going to love this, because you do see children very easily, Lauren. That's not always an easy thing. I think once we get to be grown-ups, we experience our grown-up lives, which is natural, because we're grown, unless you're simple-minded and you never grow up, or you're just completely stupid, which happens in this world. But I think, these kids went through, oh my stars, you put them through every conceivable ringer there was. But yet, the neatest thing about Jake is she is a sweet girl.
Yeah.
Sweet woman. And even though she does revengeful things, at the end of the day, you can't dislike her for it, because she makes room for everyone else and sees their suffering. So I thought what you did was you gave us a protagonist who was so beautiful in her flaws, and yet her love and humanity for her neighbors, her physical neighbors, was just so enormous. And I loved that.
Dan, that is honestly the kindest. I think you got that in a way that nobody has said out loud before, because what most people say is that they kind of find Jake foolish and unlikable. And I think, well, shit, because that's me. No, it's okay. Because Jake is one of those grown-ups who, it's like some people, your heart is just a little bit too out there. And so all of the mistakes that she made were not out of malice. I mean, later, so in the book, when she chooses to do malicious things on purpose, that's dumb, and she gets her comeuppance for that. But she didn't start off that way. Her flaw was in trusting, and so then she closed her heart, but then she realized, wait a minute, I have to figure out how to be kind and generous, and yes, set boundaries and take care of myself. But I sure hope that at the end of the book, it's kind of clear that the petty revenge, while amusing to watch, isn't really going to help anybody grow.
No, and it's really not her bag. I mean, I think that was the beauty for me is that, yes, she did some unwise things. I will tell you, I was there. I was her ride and die person because I'm like, I, I really will tell you that I saw so much of myself in Jake. I have actually been burned badly and chose to keep my mouth closed because there are things that I don't believe belong in the public. And so when you have a friend who takes advantage of you, you
Yeah.
have a choice. Do you broadcast it to the world like your friend is doing, or do you just keep your mouth shut and your head down and you try to get on with the rest of your life? I typically am that person, but I can also be extremely petty. So when the payback comes, I'm licking my chops because I'm like, you got it. Because what I have found in life is if you live long enough, the person who really hurt you will screw themselves.
Yeah.
I'm just there for the roasting the marshmallows and
You're
watching.
there for the Schadenfreude.
Yes. Yes, I am there for that. And I'm like, and something else you did, and I'm not going to be able to get too far into this because it's a little, so you put some people back together, which I find in life, for me personally, I can be on 3 different freeways on a trip somewhere and see the same damn car on all 3 freeways, whether they're in front of me, behind me, or beside me. It happens a lot. So I find that I'm the person that goes on vacation to Puerto Rico and runs into someone I know. And so you brought some people back together that you would almost think was impossible. But there again, it turns out to be such a blessing in the way you do it. You gave your characters so many redeeming qualities, and yet you gave some of them. I mean, I
Yeah.
have no love for Shelby whatsoever.
No.
I mean,
And I have no
Shelby,
love for Vanessa,
no,
Billy's mom.
precisely. And I mean, and so you did something wonderful with Vanessa that I thought was you sort of gave us a little bit of a red herring because we saw some things through Billy's mind, how, and what I realized is, gosh, I sometimes say this and I feel a little guilty for saying it, but my mother was rather narcissistic. And so I was loved of that. I need to make sure everyone knows, but she was narcissistic. And there were some things I just simply didn't realize until I
Yeah.
was approaching 60 years
Yeah.
old because I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Children don't see things because it is their environment. So when we first meet Vanessa, and Billy's reaction to some of Vanessa is a little bit misleading. And I say that because it's not misleading because the author, is trying to cheat the reader. It's misleading because Billy's mind isn't developed enough to understand the real ramifications of what life is like in his household.
Well, and because what can a 10-year-old boy do except love his mother, who is the only adult putting food on the table,
Yes.
offering any scraps of love? And like you said, you don't know enough to know how much you don't know. I mean,
That's
it
what
just breaks my heart. Yeah.
well, and I think though that's one of the things, though, Lauren, that you gave us honesty in this. This wasn't fluff or pie in the sky. This was an honest look at family dynamics, whether it's just mother, father, dad,
Yeah.
neighbor dynamics, because there are neighbor dynamics. I mean,
Yeah.
there's some neighbors I adore, and there's some neighbors if I never saw them again, I'd be very pleased. It just
Uh-huh.
happens, because we can't always choose who lives next door.
Uh-huh. That is for sure. I've had some crazy ones, but right now right now I love them all. So,
Good, good, good. All right. So now I'm going to ask a personal goofy question. So
okay,
we have Good Neighbors is an app in your book. So have you downloaded one of those apps?
good. Oh, hell yeah. It is so
Oh my
of course.
God.
Not only that, but I had found a way. I wanted to make sure I could do what Jake does, which is it's a bit tricky to log on with a fake name because they do actually want to know where you live and stuff like that. So I went on the dark web and I bought myself. And my very proper scientist husband, I don't think he knows that to this day, but you know, it all worked out. I paid in cryptocurrency. I think another thing that Southerners like us tend to do is we were brought up with such rules that we have now within us this constant need to misbehave a little bit, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah,
At any
no,
rate.
I'm right there with you, Lauren. I'll drive or you drive. It doesn't matter,
Yeah.
but we're going to get into a little bit of trouble every now and then, you know.
But well, at any rate, so I figured out how to, what's the real one called? Nextdoor. And I should have, people are like, why didn't you just say Nextdoor? And I'm like, well, because why open the door for a possible lawsuit? But anyway,
absolutely, because you never can tell how far their tentacles reach.
yeah, for sure. At any rate, but yeah, I did get on Nextdoor, and I never, like you, I don't ever enter the fray, but and I know that that a better me would not enjoy from the sidelines. But yeah, I do the popcorn, I do the, oh my God, did they really talking about the adult diaper again? Okay, let's bring it on. And that and like the comment section on anything, right? Or Reddit, or oh my gosh, do you read those? Like, people get so upset about stolen seats on airplanes. Do you know, are you on Reddit by any chance?
I am, but I'm not a big fan. So.
Oh, well, I know. And everybody looks at me when I say that and think, wait a minute, you're an incel? I'm like, no, it's just that. So what happened is, I didn't even know Reddit existed. But my little kid, when he was 12, he's like, Mom, you should do an AMA. I'm like, what's an AMA? At any rate, he set it all up, and you love your kids. But so I found the nice part of Reddit, except for there is this one subreddit it's called Stolen Seats. And it's all these people's stories about how they held their ground when somebody on the airplane said, that's my seat. And they said, oh, no, it's not. And anyway, if you need
it's funny because a friend of mine was just traveling back from Alabama back to Los Angeles. She checked in her bag at the airport, got a seat assignment, actually got a boarding pass.
Got
to the gate, and they told her she wasn't on that flight. They canceled her flight.
No.
Yes. And it's like, because somebody somewhere had enough money
to say,
I want to influence the airline to give them that seat. So she, was 6 hours late getting home. And, the airline's like, whoopsie.
Yeah, they don't care. I mean, yeah.
Now that would get me agitated. So, I'd probably start my own sub account for that.
Yeah, that would get me agitated. But for me on planes, my big thought is, always be nice to the mamas with the babies, because all of those babies, they're not crying on purpose. And all the grownups who are scowling, I'm like, you know what? You were a baby once too, you dumb. Anyway.
Right. It's not the babies I worry about. It's the crazy passengers sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
So what's next in Lauren's world? I mean, this has just come out. Are we out yet, Lauren? Yeah, it's
out. It came out like June 10th.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, and
are you working on the next thing, or are you still?
Yeah, absolutely, and it has to do with airplane drama, and I can't tell you too much, but about I guess. Well, it's another one that it's going to be less kid focused and more grown up focused, and it's going to be awesome. I hope. We'll see.
Oh, I'm sure it will be. After reading Plays Well with Others, I'm absolutely sure it's going to be awesome. And now I want to get TTYL just to be supportive.
Well, I'm sure you can buy it for like $1.99 on eBay. But yeah, it's just girls talking about girl stuff, sex and their periods and bodies and all the stuff you need to figure out. Yeah.
And for so many of us, sort of to mirror what you said earlier, for so many of us who grew up in a little more regimented society, so to speak, books at the library were the way we found out things. Because, when I was 22, my dad asked me, was there anything he needed to know about the birds and the bees? Okay, really? Thank you, Dad. Love you, but thank you. Not one mention of sex was ever uttered in the household I grew up in. I mean, I guess they just thought that people didn't have it. I mean, maybe they'd stop, so they figured kids didn't want it either. But it's funny what we do in life.
Yeah, isn't it? Well, sorry. So here we go. The snake eating its tail. So I was brought up going to church, and there were parts of it that I rejected 100%, and there were parts of it that I really loved. But I read an article somewhere as a young mom that said the kids who were brought up in church, maybe half of them will stay in the church, half of them won't, but the kids who aren't brought up in church don't ever really go to church. And I'm like, well, I want my kids to have that possibility. I mean, I have fond memories of things like, making God's eyes and Sunday school. And so we went to this super progressive church called Plymouth. It was what do you call that? What's one of the progressive?
United
Not
University.
Unitarian, but close.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
doesn't matter. So the kids took this class called OUR, which stands for Our Whole Life. And this is when they were in like elementary school. And they would have, it was supposed to be about sexuality and everything. And so the two grown-up teachers and then like 12 kids, and there was always a little box and you could put a question and not put your name on it. And I remember, now see, this is one of those things, I'm just going to say it. So I remember my 9-year-old coming out and saying, Mom, this is after one of the classes. And I said, yeah, baby. And he said, well, I don't think anal sex is for me.
Oh my God. Oh my good heavens to Betsy. I love that.
So again, religion has a lot of faces, just like we all have a lot of faces. But
oh, Lauren, that's priceless. That has to show up in a book.
Yeah, you're right.
If it doesn't show up in a book, you're cheating us, the audience.
I told that story at a high school after I said to the principal, hey, is there anything I need to worry, because I try to be. And she said, no, the stage is yours. They need, this is in Georgia. I told that story, and then the next day, oh my God. I mean, and the point of the story was be educated. This is a book called The Infinite Moment of Us, which is about a young woman's first sexual encounter. And I was trying to tell these kids, because I knew that they, for whatever reason, I don't think Georgia was doing much in the terms of sex ed. It's like, y'all, go to books, ask questions, ask people you trust. At any rate, that's where the context of the story came up. And then the next day it was one of those, God damn it, because like the bookstores withdrew all their support. There was a huge apology in the paper. It was like, Satan, Satan's talking about anal sex again. So
right. Oh my God, that is priceless. I mean, it's priceless for you to tell me the story. I mean,
now.
right now it is, but when it happens to you in the moment, it's not so priceless, I'm sure. But you know what though? Some child in that audience would have heard what they needed to hear, and it will have made a difference. Children are sponges, and we do have to be careful what we say and do around them. I totally understand that. But if everything is completely closed door and no conversation, how will a child really truly develop? I mean, we ask them to take science and English and math in school and maybe a foreign language, but if we don't teach them to think
their heart, right?
Precisely. I mean, that's
how do you regulate your emotions, and how do you make friends, and what does it mean to be a good friend, and how do you handle anger? And yeah, absolutely. That's so. And again, that's what I think books can do, is provide a safe space to show all of these different ways of being, and then let the kid process it. And
well, that's right. And then, it gives them a full roundedness that keeping things from them doesn't. Because if you, as a parent, this, if you keep secrets from your children know you're keeping a secret. They may not know what the secret is, but then they begin to think, because this is the undeveloped mind, mommy doesn't trust me to talk to me realistically, or I've done something wrong, so therefore she's shutting down. And it is a natural thing. All children go through that.
Well, and that makes me think too, something I wanted to say about the whole banned books and parents and biting your thumb at people. I actually, when I think about, like, there's some group of women right now, Myracle, I can't remember what they're called, but who are going around spreading my thought is, can we have coffee? Can somebody make it happen so that we can all sit down and have coffee? Because I swear I'm not Satan. I swear I love kids. I swear I love compassion and love. And so my thought is, let's talk it out, because
Yes,
if
yes.
these kids are seeing their parents say, we're taking this book, they can't go to that parent and say, I mean, the parent is saying, I'm not going to talk about this with you. And I think what you want to do as a parent is be that safe adult who can take any
Precisely.
question. Yeah.
Well, precisely, because honestly, if now here's me without children, but if you really want to be a good parent, you have to give your children the space to grow and to ask questions. Because if you're constantly saying you can't touch this and you can't touch that, the number of people I went to school with in high school that were drunk all the time
Yeah.
always had parents who were railing and screaming about drinking. And so
Oh,
the kids that, the kids on Friday night that got completely smashed
yeah.
were the kids that came from homes where the parents absolutely forbid it.
Yeah.
And it's like, so, we want our children to grow up to be better citizens than we are.
Yeah.
At
Yeah.
least I hope they are, because I'm getting old. I'm probably going to need one of them to help me.
Take care of you.
know they're going to probably poison my food if I'm not nice to them. So come on, now, let's
You'll
educate
be
them.
nice to them. They'll love you. They'll have to clip your toenails.
There you go. There
You ever think? I think about the most random things. I think, oh my God, somebody's going to have to clip my toenails one day. And I get this chin hair. I'm like, in my will, I put Myracle will pluck my chin hair on my dead body before
Yes.
any kind of viewing. I don't know if there'll be a viewing. I don't know even what I'm talking about. But I guess I know that I'm vain, and I don't want that chin hair going with me.
Me as well. So I looked this morning. I'm like, do I have to shave? Because my beard's white. I'm like, I don't think it'll even show up.
It's adorable. It looks
Thank
very
you.
cute. It does look a little bit like a devilish goatee right now.
That's what I'm working for.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna have Satan on my podcast, I have to be devilish.
It's like you're a mix between Santa, which actually sounds a lot like Satan. You're Satan Claus.
Yes, I love it, and I find it to be so unique that if you just rearrange the letters of Santa, you do get Satan, and I'm like, was this on purpose or what?
Well, I remember being in third grade and realizing live is evil spelled backwards.
Oh.
I know. So.
Oh, that's a good one. I played word games where I have to guess the words. So I loved that. Yes, it gives you a lot of pause for thought, doesn't it?
I love words. I mean, you and I are both like that.
Right, yeah. Precisely. Again, the book is Plays Well with Others. It's by Lauren Myracle, and it is absolutely magical and fabulous. Come back for your next book, will you?
Absolutely.
Lovely. I'll take it.
This is super fun. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks, Lauren. Hang on for me just a second.
Okay.
Thank you for joining me for this week's episode of Out with Dan. You can find more information about this podcast and its host at OutWithDan.com, on Twitter at OutWithDan, and on Instagram and Facebook at GoOutWithDan. This podcast is hosted by Authors on the Air Global Radio Network, and the theme music is provided by bensound.com. Join us again soon for the next episode of Out with Dan.